Hello. It's gonna be an awkward 1 second of this is a review. I'm here to review an exciting new movie that just came out uh called Sinners. I saw it opening weekend, which I haven't seen anything opening weekend in a hot minute. It's probably been years. Um did I see Sonic 3 opening weekend? I don't remember, but it certainly took me longer to talk about that movie. Sinners came out last weekend, which makes this probably one of my quickest turnarounds of when a movie came out and when I'm reviewing it. In years, certainly. Uh, but yeah, I've seen it. It's awesome. I need to scoot back in my chair a little bit so I don't lean out of frame. I've seen it. It's awesome, and I want to talk about it. I need to talk about it. So for those who don't know, this is the latest movie from Ryan Coogler, director of Black Panther and the Creed. No, I think just the first Creed movie. I don't know. Black Panther and Creed. It's with Michael B. Jordan, and Michael B. Jordan plays these. He plays twins, so he plays two characters, and they're opening. It's like it's a horror movie. Um, I don't even know what I want to say in the non spoiler section of this video, other than cinema. Cinema is back. It's peak. I could be reviewing the Minecraft movie instead. I did watch the bootleg of that, but I don't want to review that. Chicken jockey, yeah. It's funny and all, but this is real cinema enjoyers should go see Sinners. Cinema peak Martin Scorsese gif. That's how I feel about this movie. It's just absolutely incredible movie, and I'm so glad that it seems to be it's the rare ticks all the boxes. It is an appealing crowd pleaser. It is a fun horror movie, and it is a I don't want to say Oscar bait, but Oscar worthy drama, let's say. Because so basically the premise of the movie is it's this period piece set in the 1930s. It's about these two twin brothers, both played by Michael B. Jordan, and they're trying to open a juke joint, as they call it, a music club for people, for their community to come and gather. They have this backstory, this sort of criminal backstory, and they're trying to give back to their community. They've returned home. There's this whole story to it. I don't want to spoil too much, but basically the first half of the movie, I say it's a horror movie, the first half of the movie is really not even horror. And the movie in general is not really trying to scare you. It's just crafting a really compelling plot that just happens to have this awesome horror element that is just the cherry on top. I don't even want to spoil what the horror element is if you have avoided trailers and avoided information about the movie, because it's not, it's not immediately obvious. The movie opens with this awesome sort of intro narration sequence talking about music that can commune with the spirits and bridge the veil between the living and dead. And the movie's as much about music as it is about whatever, the horror element. And the music stuff is, oh my god, there's a scene in the movie, and you'll know it when you see it, but it's the kind of scene where you lean a lean forward, oh shit, they locked in kind of scene that it comes up about halfway through the movie. And it's still, and you're already in, the story is just really compelling, not just of these two brothers, but also there's a sort of audience surrogate character who's this young musician who's related to the brothers, and he's, he wants to play in their juke joint. He wants to play in their music place. And there's this conflict with him between his father is a preacher and what his father wants and what he wants, and that ties in amazingly into the horror element that is introduced in the sort of in the second half of the movie. But it's not like a hard, like it's not a twist. It's not like cheap like that. It's all just sort of this one of the most thematically rich like popcorn flicks I've ever seen. You know, like thematically rich but still appealing to all sort. Seeing the movie, especially opening weekend, it was so apparent all these different kinds of audiences. When there were the moviegoers who sit on the moviegoers who were on their phone during the movie, and the moviegoers who were locked in, and the moviegoers who were screaming in excitement. Every kind of moviegoer was there, and the theater was like, it wasn't packed full, but it was packed. You know it, and the movie is doing really really well, and I could not be happier because seriously, if you have any love for movies, go see it. And you don't have to, but it's not, see it in IMAX. There's some cool aspect. There's an aspect ratio shift moment that is really awesome. That the sound mixing with the musical sequences is just, it's so good, and it's like it's this year's movie champ championing the theater experience. That doesn't, I can't say that out loud. That championing is weird. Okay, whatever. It's amazing. It's peak. Go see it. Uh, the acting, the performances are also good. The direction of these sequences and some of these shots are just awesome. It's also just like a really exciting movie. Like when the horror stuff starts to ramp up, it's really engaging, but not engaging in the usual way that horror movies go for, where, like I said it earlier, but truly the first hour or so of this movie is not a horror movie. It's a period piece drama. It's a black period piece drama. It's very much about, and I'm not gonna talk about those elements too much because I'm not the person to talk about those elements, but like that's, it's clearly made for that community and by someone who really respects the history and the legacy of like blues music is a big part of this movie. And all of that is before the horror stuff is even introduced, and all of that is just so compelling that instead of the usual whole, like the section of the movie that in most horror movies would be the, all right, let's fast forward, we're gonna fast forward on rewatch to get to the horror part, is like so compelling and so interesting. And there's just enough like seeds of intrigue. That little intro, there's just enough of those little horror elements are thrown in the beginning without it trying to be a horror movie, but it's enough that it's like, if you like that, you know, like that intro sequence is gonna get you in. And the when it does, there's a scene where it's like, okay, we're introducing the horror thing now, and it's just the right amount of length into the movie that I think even the most I don't care, fast forward to the scary part viewer would be able to like lock back in if they weren't already. It truly is like an all audience appealing movie, I think, unless you like can't do gore, like, and it's not even a particularly gory movie, but just like if you can't do like an R-rated horror movie, if you don't. But even if you're normally not a horror person, I mean, my friend Jack is normally not a horror guy. He went and saw it in theaters. He was saying, it's like, yeah, this is the first horror movie I've really gone and seen in theaters, and it, he loved it. I loved it. I saw it with a bunch of my friends, and they all, nobody was lower than like a 9 out of 10 on it. This is the kind of movie we're talking about. It's like 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I have some little nitpicks, and I guess I can kind of go into those now. The sequence that I was talking about that's in the middle of the movie, that is this like musical sequence, that scene is so, without spoiling anything, that scene is so good that it made me want more of that in the rest of the movie. It made me kind of want, there's a certain element to that scene that is largely unique to that scene that I wanted to come back into play later, and it never really did. and I think that like I it's hard to imagine how it's hard to even talk about it without. It's hard to talk. It's a movie so good that it's like, okay, if I want to actually get into nitty gritty of things I didn't really like, I guess another thing that's spoiler free that I can say is that the two Michael B. Jordan characters, he gives a great performance, and both the characters are very distinct. But I will say that maybe they could have been even more distinct. I don't know. It's hard because if you make them too it'd be easy to make them too like cartoonishly different, especially because they are like designed. I say designed like costumes, look, presentation. They're designed in such a way that you can immediately kind of get like, so this one is the no nonsense serious one, and this one is the charming charismatic one. Their names are Smoke and Stack, which is kind of the Smokestack twins, and they're like these criminals. They're like these sort of gangster types, but they don't they're not like thugs. I'm not gonna over explain that element, but like they're very compelling characters. But I do wish they were had a little more to distinguish them. But I also think if you did that wrong, it could be they could come off as cartoonish caricatures of like the serious one and the suave one, whereas they really don't. They both feel like fully fleshed out human beings. Um, and really, that applies to all of my criticisms of the movie. It's just like things that I wish maybe they could have done, but also they did everything that was done. It's one of those movies where the only issues I have with it are things I wish there were more of or wish they could have done. Uh, because everything they did do is so well handled that I do worry that any of my little critiques could dilute what is already there. Um, Anything else I can talk about that's like not spoilery? No, I think 12 minutes in, that's a good length into the video to talk about spoilers. Uh let's just start out with the big one, the horror element. What is it? If you probably already know, I probably didn't need to dance around it, but I wanted to just in case. Vampires. They're all gathering at this juke joint at night to party through the night, and who shows up? Who is attracted by the music of what's the main kid's name? Sammy. I remember this because the main vampire goes Sammy when he talks to him. But the main kid Sammy, played by a first time actor, actually. Like dude is a singer, but they like got him to act, and he's really good. He's definitely, this is gonna be a big like acting career jump for him because he's very like, his performance is great. Like he's one of the standouts in a movie full of standouts. And he's sort of emotionally the main character of the film. Like Michael B. Jordan as twins are sort of the, but he's the one that you start out following him and you end the movie following him, and his journey is the one that is like paramount to the story, and also audience surrogate. He's sort of the audience investment point. Like his story, when there's a lot of media does this, where there's like some characters that are the main characters, but there's also the character that the story starts with them and ends with them. Whereas the story of the Smokestack twins starts before the beginning of the movie's events. The story of this character is the beginning and end of this movie. And his performance is incredible, and the musical scene, it's that scene in the middle of the movie. They do this musical sequence, and he's singing his blues song, and they repeat the narration from the beginning. But, the spirits of the past and the dead can be summoned, the spirits of the past and future. And then suddenly there's an electric guitar, and there's a DJ, and it's like showing, and there's like tribal dancing going on as well, and it's this long one shot through the whole building of just like all the and the music is just, I've listened to the song independently of the visuals quite a bit on like drives and stuff, and even without all these fancy camera techniques in this wonder, it's just an incredible like piece of music that goes through. Like, they throw this hip hop beat on there, and then there's this sort of tribal drum beat that comes in, and then there's at one point the vocals of Sam, like Sammy's vocals transition into a like Irish like lilt, and the Irish lilt is sort of the vampire's theme because the main vampire is Irish. It's implied that he's like, this is something that I think the most interesting thing that the movie does with the vampires is it'd be very easy, and I guarantee that the criticisms you will the unintelligent criticism you will see of this movie is, oh, it's just vampires equal racism, and like it's just, but that's what's interesting is it's not. I mean, it is like obviously there is an element of racism to this story, and there is an element of the white vampires showing up and like calling, like there's obvious, because why would you, like, it's a black period piece vampire movie, you'd have to like actively try to not have racism commentary. But what I like about it is the vampires don't so much represent racism as they represent like cultural assimilation. Like the main vampire that shows up, the Irish one, and all his music is sort of Irish, but he shows up because he is summoned by the music of Sammy's magic music, and that whole montage sequence that I was just talking about. But he's summoned not out of a like, I hate these people and I want to like destroy what they have. He's acting like his whole pitch is what he wants. He wants what they have in a racist way, but he's also inviting them into his community. And there's this element that I didn't quite realize this was the implication until pretty late in the movie, even though it's fairly obvious. The main guy, it's not just that he's Irish, he's also implied to be centuries old, presumably from the Irish Troubles era of history, where the Irish were persecuted by the British, and like a lot of them fled to America, like that period of time. Or I don't know if that's fled. I don't know that much about the Irish Troubles, but the point is, his Irishness and his Irish music is this. It stands in contrast to the blues and the stuff, but it's also there's an interesting similarity that is trying to be drawn, where he's this guy he's this vampire who's old enough to be completely removed from the realities of early 1900s American racism, and his vampiric worldview is that of community. Like, he wants to bring them all together into this community, and this community is obviously very cultish, and it's sort of, instead of being the white vampire hates the black man, it's a much more complicated analogy of like cultural assimilation, of like the vampires want to assimilate this thriving black community that is at this juke joint celebrating. They want to assimilate them into their vampire cult and kind of like take away what makes their worldview unique. And there's this great conflicts between like the characters when they get turned into vampires, sort of join a collective shared memory. So there's this element of like, one of the Smokestack twins gets turned into a vampire, and then there's this element of like, he's there whispering in their ear, trying to convince them. Essentially, they really, the other thing they play with great is the whole vampires have to be invited in thing, because obviously, of course, the guys running this black juke joint aren't going to just invite in 3 random white people that show up and play an Irish jig to try to convince them to let them in. And it's a really funny scene when they do that to try to convince. But that's also like, so I've never seen a vampire movie do so much with the tension of they can't come in. Like from the vampire's introduction, from the main guy's vampire introduction, his introduction scene is him having to convince these two other white people to let him in, and he does so by realizing they're KKK members and being like, "Them Indians are hunting me down, guys." Like, he appeals to their racism. He appeals to their racism without himself being, like, prejudiced. It's already such an interesting sort of, like, dynamic that makes the villain character so much more compelling than just racism allegory. Like he and then when he starts converting his when he starts converting people, like, I think it's Stack that gets turned. It's the suave one, and I don't remember which one is Smoke and which one is Stack. But he, when he turns them, it's like they start convincing too, where it's like, yes, join us, escape the persecution. They reveal that, like, yeah, the KKK guy that you bought this building from, he was gonna bring his guys down here and, like, kill y'all anyway. So you should come out and join us. You should let us in and join our community. And it's Irish this Irish jig thing, but it's also very, like, church music-y. When I say church music, I mean, like, evangelical church. Like, you know what I'm talking about, where it's sort of like, God is great, and it's like, but with this sort of dark spin of it's like vampires. And then that wraps in beautifully with with Sammy's conflict with his father, who doesn't want him to play the blues, and he wants to play the blues. And that's what his song in that musical sequence in the middle is about, is that whole thing. It's just so... I could definitely talk about it for a lot longer. And maybe I will, bring it up on the Fear podcast at one point, whenever we do another one of those. Depends on how long it takes before we do another one of those. But it's just like there's so much to the movie, but it's not a preachy movie that bangs you over the head with a racism metaphor and is like, you are supposed to interpret this way. There's actually, like, the ending of the movie, and I have some sort of mixed thoughts about. There's kind of multiple endings to this movie. There's the climax where they fight the vampires, and then there's another action set piece where Smoke, I think it's Smoke, the remaining brother, kills all the KKK guys that show up the next morning, which I thought, when the vampire villain was telling them about the KKK plan, I thought he was lying to them to, like, manipulate them. But then I found out, I'm like, oh, that actually is real. And there's a part of me that's like, is that a little, like, cliche? Like, does that make the most sense? Would it have been more interesting if he was just lying to them? But I think it is more interesting that he wasn't. That he was genuinely telling them, yeah, the KKK are gonna come kill you guys. Or like, try to. If you stay here till the morning, the KKK will come and try to kill you guys. So join me. Like, I think it is more interesting that is genuine. Even if it kind of, for me, came a little bit out of nowhere of like, oh, this is also an element too. It just adds a little bit more interestingness to it, where it's like, by the end of all the stuff that happens with the vampire, even Michael B. Jordan's brother character is telling Sammy, give up the music, and the music is what summoned these vampires here in the first place. And that, when I said earlier that I wish there was more sequences like that middle sequence, what I mean is that in that middle sequence, I couldn't help but imagine a version of this movie where there's, like, multiple timelines interspersing throughout, but really there kind of isn't room in the movie for that. So as much as that could have been cool, I also think it could have made the movie feel like there's already a lot happening, and it could have made it feel like there was too much going on. So again, it's a case of, man, another thing I do kind of wish is, like, oh, I wish he'd used the music somehow to fight off the vampires. He bashes the guy over the head with the guitar, but that's not the same as, like, it would have been cool if he was using the music and the spirits somehow to ward them off. But also, that might have gotten in the way of the element of, like, yes, objectively, him playing this blues music brought about this scenario, so maybe he's going to stop, and there's even this intrigue of maybe he is going to stop playing the blues. The movie opens with a flash forward sequence of him showing up back at the church with the broken guitar, and his father is like, return to us, put down the guitar, and it's left vague if he's going to put down the guitar. And you kind of are like, maybe he should, if it's some, but then you get this wonderful ending sequence where you do flash forward 60 years, and he's this older blues player. He's been playing the blues, and I like that every other character in the movie, even like the Smoke was like, stop playing, and he never, like, he didn't give up on his dream. And there's an ending sequence, stay, because there's this blues transition. If you're at this point in the movie, you've already seen it, but the post-credit scene, if you walk out for this post-credit scene, that's not even really a post-credit scene. It's when a movie starts its credit sequence during a montage and then does another scene after a little bit of credits. That's what it is. And thankfully in my showing, opening weekend, people were like glued to their seats and compelled enough that like there was some shuffling when the credits started rolling, but nobody really got up and left. Like, that's how immersed people were, that there was this sense of like, oh, it's, the movie still feels like it's happening, and I will remain seated for this movie because it's peak. And so then you get another ending scene where Michael B. Jordan, the other one, the vampire one, and his girlfriend, Haley Steinfeld's character, who has a whole nother thing going on that I didn't even touch on, but she's a really interesting character too. They show up, both having been vampires, but it's interesting because it doesn't, like, I kind of am like, this is a weird, like, I didn't even realize that Michael B. Jordan's vampire was still alive. Like, is this going to be another fight scene? Like, do we need this epilogue? But it has this really interesting where it's not, it leaves things off on a much more complicated note where it's like, oh, them becoming vampires really didn't just make them, like, mindless vampire cult members. Like, these two, and because Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld, they show up to the guy's jazz club not to terrorize him or to like fight him, and there's no fight sequence. They show up, they ask him, would you like to be a vampire? You're old now, and my brother made me promise when he didn't kill me not to hurt you, and I kept that promise, which is already like compelling enough. But he's like, you're old now, do you want to join us and play the blues forever, basically? And he declines the offer, of course, but he plays a song for them one last time. And there's this interesting, like, because Stack, I think it's Stack, the one that got turned into a vampire, he's the brother that Sammy, I think, connects with more in the first act. So you get this sort of resolution to their emotional through line of, like, the brother who most encouraged him to pursue his music comes back, offers him a chance to play the music eternally. He declines, and then they have this sort of exchange that is like, they have this great moment where it's like, all the horror of the vampire stuff happened, yeah, but I think before that happened, this was the best night. Like, before all that happened, this was the best night of my life. And they have this, like, bonding over that of, like, before, like, that community that they had at the juke joint before the vampires showed up and it all went south was the best, was, like, what it was all for. And it's, like, I think if you miss that scene, you're missing the emotional resolution of the story of the film. Which, if you're just going to see people kill vampires, is like, whatever. But if you're going to appreciate it in its fullness, you need to stick through that minute-long montage and get to that scene because it's very, very important. And this movie, I think, is just very, I hesitate to say, like, important, because it's not necessarily, like, it's not a social commentary movie, but it has that commentary in it. It's important if you like movies. If you like horror movies, if you like dramas, if you like popcorn flicks, or if you like movies that have something to say. Like, I am telling you right now, if you're watching this video, if you're at the end of this video and you haven't already watched the movie, go watch the movie. I know I just spoiled it all for you, but go watch the movie. And if you've already watched the movie, go watch it again, because these are the kinds of movies that need to do well in the movie theaters, that need to be like appreciated. And I'm glad that it does seem to be appreciated. It's sort of the the anti Minecraft movie, a Minecraft movie that is not that is like a shitpost, a true shitpost of a movie with basically no like redeeming, with basically no value as cinema. This is the opposite. This is Martin Scorsese GIF cinema. I hope that when it captures a thumbnail frame, it captures me doing this. I'm just going to keep doing this a few more times so it doesn't pull from the very end of the video. Anyway, I've said everything I want to say. I've said everything I want to say. Go see Sinners. Go see Sinners. Go see Sinners. Arrivederci!